Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Recap a Guy's Review. Now this video is about ShaCarri Richardson, the 21-year-old sprinter, one of the fastest women in the world, who is not allowed to compete in this year's 100-meter dash in the Olympics because of a test positive for THC. We're talking about this on the Bachelor News channel because we like to dip our toes into other relevant conversations out there. Well, Emmanuel Acho, who had guest hosted the After the Final Rose ceremony here on Bachelor Nation and also author of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, tweeted this out a few days ago. Thank y'all for shaming my opinion on weed. You shamed me into doing more research. Now, I've been talking about shame nonstop here. Shame is the feeling of humiliation caused by foolish behavior. Well, what was that foolish behavior? Let's talk about the foolish behavior that led Emmanuel Acho to do more research. Now, shame's not a bad thing. Shaming people that might disagree with you is not a bad thing. I mean, was it worth canceling the guy over? No, of course not. It's just like, hey, man, you got a weird take on this one, and I need you to do some more research. You can always agree to disagree, but if your opinion's based on sort of flawed logic or because you don't understand all the aspects of the issue, that's one thing. Now, let's go into why this came about here. This is me from just a couple days ago, or actually a week ago, reading the tweets that Emmanuel Acho sent out defending why ShaCarri Richardson should be kicked off the team because of weed being performance enhancing. Here it is. Don't do them. Now here's Emmanuel Acho. This is where it gets banana land. Because I thought his take would be completely different. He played in the NFL. He's now a host on Fox Sports and he's on all these Lexus commercials and all that. He said, legalizing weed in track and field competition is all good if you're running in a straight line. Legalizing weed in track and field competition is terribly dangerous if you throw the javelin. Where do we draw the line?
What?
What
is that?
This is
not there.
The worst take. First of all, javelin and hammer throw, they have those little dugouts, so you can only throw it in a certain direction or it's going to hit a net.
You're not whipping it into the stands.
That's I'll tell you where we draw the line, Emmanuel. We're not worrying about someone being too drunk to throw a javelin and they're in a sea of people. What are you talking about? Shiv Ramdas says, bro, Lawrence Taylor smoked crack and threw himself headfirst into 350-pound men for 10 years. It will be okay, I promise you. He said, we're looking at performance-enhancing drugs the wrong way. They don't just make you better, they can also keep you from getting worse. What? All right, so this goes on and on. You can go watch the old video there. And people were like, just like me, were like, this take is horrible. First of all, the only evidence that weed was performance enhancing was like anecdotal and it was from like 10 years ago, which, just like that's not how science and medicine works. You work to prove something, with like reasonable, like multiple sources and you got to like medical journals and they didn't have any of that. It was just like, oh, it's not good for you. And then the idea that weed helps you recover so it should be out is like bananas. You can take anti-inflammatories, you can ice your knees. There's a million things you can do. So people started pulling Emmanuel Acho, who played linebacker. They started pulling up old photos of him wearing wrist guards, being like performance enhancing. He's trying to protect his wrist. So all the logic behind it was flawed. Let's see what we have next. Well, we'll get into this in a second. So here's Emmanuel explaining after the criticism, because he's never smoked weed before. Which, not to say you should have to smoke weed to be able to research, whatever. But I come from the same place too, where raised with a connotation of what weed was. It's a gateway drug. It's this or that. So Emmanuel says, "Thank y'all for shaming my opinion on weed. You shamed me into doing more research." So lots of credit for this video I'm about to share you for Emmanuel Acho. Yeah, he dug down a little bit. He kind of defended his case a little bit. And then he kind of realized, all right, this is there's a lot of systemic issues with weed. He'll explain it right now. The racism behind criminalizing weed in America. The more you know about this subject, the more you realize it is a tool used to enslave people.
Because you shamed me into challenging
Let's go back to the beginning here.
Thank you all for shaming me in my opinion of weed on social media because you shamed me into challenging myself and doing more research. Yes, weed should be legalized federally in the United States, but primarily because the only reason it was ever made illegal was because of a racist dude and his racism. Harry Anslinger, 1930, he was appointed the director of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And get this dude's train of thought. Quote, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. Close quote. Quote, There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in America, primarily Hispanics, Negroes, entertainers, and Filipinos. This marijuana usage causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and others. The only reason Harry Anslinger wanted to ban marijuana usage was because he was racist. He ignored 29 out of 30 pharmacists who submitted to him that marijuana has no negative attributes. He ignored Dr. Bromberg, who examined 2,200 criminals. And of the 2,200 criminals he examined, he did not find a correlation between their criminal activity and their marijuana usage. Harry Anslinger ignored all of that, but this is really the tipping point. Harry Anslinger, during the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, he presented to Congress a story, one of his gore stories. His gore stories was a police report, and he would take a police report and he would take the most heinous crime, sexual or violent, and he would attribute that crime to marijuana usage. Research showed that all of these stories were fake as it pertained to the usage of marijuana. He presented one of those stories to Congress in 1937, helped pass the Marijuana Tax Act. My coach in college, he told me, listen to the message, not the tone. I guess that's applicable on social media as well. I ain't gonna be lighting up my first blunt anytime soon, but I appreciate y'all shaming me this time.
Light it up, Emmanuel. Get out there. All right, look, hey, this is a good conversation. This is good. We know that weed was used for anti-war protesters. They knew anti-war protesters were hippies. Well, let's have a reason to stop them and arrest them. Same thing, so it's stop and frisk in New York City. I mean, there's plenty of reasons where you can see all these issues. And a lot of people say, well, the rules are the rules. You get those types of people, they just can't process it. What about the rules? They're rules. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of times when rules, need to get changed. February 19th, 2016, this article came out. Arrest photo of young activist Bernie Sanders emerges from Tribune archives. Chicago police officers carry protester Bernie Sanders, 21, in August 1963 to a police wagon from a civil rights demonstration. Well, rules are rules, Bernie. You should have known. You got to stick to the rules, Bernard Sanders. Look at this guy smoking a cigar, watching them get handcuffed. Look, the rules are the rules until they're changed, and these rules need to be changed. So ShaCarri Richardson, it's important to remember, she tested positive, so she's not allowed to run in the 100-meter dash. But that's because there's a 30-day window for the Olympics. Towards the end of the Olympics, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when the 4x100-meter dash would be, so she'd still be eligible for that. Now, Emmanuel Acho has a new take, and it's actually, I disagree with it. It's slightly different, but we'll talk about that in a second. But here's one of the greatest football players of our times, Patrick Mahomes, discussing the scenario and what's going down.
I'm not going to go into the finer things as far as the marijuana and all that different type of stuff, but I do think, the rule was in place that she was at least able to run the 4x1, and for her to be left off after all the hard work, dedication that she's put into the sport, and her to be one of those bright young stars for the USA. It's just disappointing that she got left off after she put in the work, even though she made a mistake like we all make mistakes. And in whatever way that is, to give her an extra almost ban to not let her be at the Olympics at all is pretty ridiculous to me. I'm not going to go into.
Now, we know that the NFL and other major sporting leagues are relaxing their testing of marijuana. What they're realizing is that marijuana is actually a healthier substitute to painkillers that Big Pharma present to people. So, and, also can help with a ton of other things. And not to say that you can't, there's no such thing as a wonder drug. Not everything works for everybody, but the idea that ShaCarri Richardson's high as she's running is just it's just very misplaced. So here's Emmanuel Acho's latest thing. So there's really no reason why ShaCarri Richardson can't be in the top 4x. Now this might make common sense to you guys. She's not allowed in the 100-meter, not this year. It's done with. The rules are the rules. They need to be changed. I'm sure they will be. There's a protest happening here. Let ShaCarri run. This was also sent to me, by the way. Shout out to Greater Joy Shop for sending me Let Her Run stickers. And also, I got another. She sent me this t-shirt which says, let me tell you something. So let me tell you something. I look like the Superman of the power recapper world. So let me tell you something about why this is messed up here. We've got, and it's good. It's good that this is there's steam that's coming with this. There's a petition to let ShaCarri Richardson run, because while we can't get her back in the 100 meter because these rules were in place and they have to change the rules, we understand that. We can talk about how foolish it is. The 4x100 meter, she'd be allowed to run. Now, if you were to tell me, hey, where's the pen here? The baton, right? You have to be able to, the baton, if say she's really bad at grabbing, as a 4x100 meter, listen, I did a little track and field in high school. You have to be the first person, and then there's the transfer zone where you have to go stick, grab it, whatever their code words are, and they grab the stick, and then the person behind them is reaching for it, they grab it, and they keep running, right? So as long as she's good at doing the exchange, which I'm sure anyone who runs track also does the relay races. So as long as that's not, if someone was like, oh, ShaCarri Richardson drops the baton 100% of the time, we can't have her on the team. That's not the case. She won the 100 meter. She is the fastest 100 meter runner in the United States, and our country should be putting out our best talent so we can shove it to all those other countries. USA, USA. So anyway, folks, this is what Emmanuel's take was on this subject. He says, if you want to know why ShaCarri Richardson was left off the Olympic team altogether, stop and watch this. If you just want to be uncontrollably upset, keep scrolling. So, all right, we like you, Emmanuel. Let's see if you're going to have to issue an apology for this one, too.
For the sake of you, the viewer, we separate the feelings from the facts. ShaCarri missing the Olympics. She had to, because once her performance was invalidated due to the failed drug test, then the United States Track and Field Committee had one option: remove somebody else who placed 4th to 6th to put ShaCarri Richardson on the relay.
Or don't.
But I'm going to ask you, who would you remove? Because the 4th...
Well, to answer your rhetorical question, I would remove whoever runs slower than her. So she's the fastest runner, so I would take the next 3 people, the second fastest, the third fastest, and the 4th fastest. I would put them on the team. So who would I remove? The 5th fastest person. Now, I still think they get to bring like an alternate if someone busts a hammy or whatever. But I would, I would go with who's the fastest at the 100 meter. If someone's good at the 4x200 meter, let them run the 4x200 meter. This is the 100 meter. It's a different race.
Place finisher was Gabby Thomas, the fastest woman alive over 200 meters, who just happens to be a black woman. The 5th place finisher was English Gardner, who has the 8th fastest time ever through 100 meters and also has an Olympic gold.
Well, it's not the 8x100 relay. We're not doing the 8 fastest. It's who can run the 4 fastest times, line them up, and get them that gold medal. I swear, if anyone beats us in gold medal counts, I'm telling you.
Gold medal in 2016, arguably the most decorated short sprinter currently running the short sprints, who also happens to be a black woman. Or the 6th place finisher, Aaliyah Hobbs, who graduated or at least attended LSU, like ShaCarri attended LSU, and has the 3rd fastest time in America through 100 meters this year. She also happens to be a black woman. So we can't jump to make it about race, because in order to put ShaCarri on the relay team, you would have to remove ShaCarri. You would have to remove somebody else from the relay team, and I don't know who else you would remove.
I would remove the 5th fastest person. And so I tweeted below, and he shared the information. You get 8th fastest ever in the 100 meter. Yeah, if it's not like, you guys get this, right? I don't need to be redundant. I said, take the top 4 100 meter runners. Wouldn't she have been in the top 4 since she won it? She should be number 1. Someone said exactly what I said, and he listed a possible second leg runner who could easily be replaced for her. No, there's no like, the take's wrong, Emmanuel. The take's wrong. We're going to shame you for it. But I appreciate you, Emmanuel. Listen, I get you got to make some, boy, you're making me make content about it. So I understand that I get what you're doing out there. I'm trying to see what this, look at these, I get all these advertisements. I think that's it. I think that gets us to the end here. So anyway, folks, a good example by Emmanuel Acho. And, shame's one of those things. It's like, maybe, we go too far with shame. Like I said, social media, the wrecking ball always goes too far. But it is good to be like, to call people out and go, no, look, this is why the take's wrong. I mean, people were dunking on Emmanuel Acho because the amount of people that are in jail because of weed possession and weed-based crimes is exponentially the black community. And then they can't vote. and they're working for literal slave labor in prisons. It's modern day slavery. We talk about this all the time. A for-profit prison system, they get to they export their goods and services knowing they're paying their slave labor like $10 a week or something. I mean, it's criminal. All for what? A plant that grows and people get a little high? You know, police officers will tell you they'd much rather deal with a stoned person than they would a drunk person. You know, you get drunk, you know, rage, this and that. A stoned person, what do they get? They're listening to Led Zeppelin. You know, whatever the case may be. They're winning 100 meter. So the issue of destigmatizing weed, touched on by Emmanuel, and credit where it's due, a good job of doing his research. And I know a lot of you guys are doing the same because we're getting some great comments. So the argument, and you guys, and just to say this, just to harp on it, it's like when the Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee. Now hold on, I'm not trying to trigger people. Listen to me. Colin Kaepernick taking the knee, and people were saying, we support our troops. Well, you're having the wrong argument. I mean, how many times did people have to say, the protest in the NFL is not against our military. It's against the brutalization of the black community by police officers. It's against the targeting and all that. And it's like, well, people say, well, but the troops. That's not what the protest is about. A protest is done because you're trying to send a symbol to people of injustice and how it's wrong. Bernie Sanders doesn't get arrested because he wants to be arrested. Sorry, there it is. He doesn't get arrested because he wants to get arrested. He gets arrested because this photo goes on the Chicago Tribune and you see this young Jewish white guy getting arrested for civil rights. And that'll reach people that, you know, that it might not reach other diverse groups getting arrested. You see a man who's fighting for freedoms. So with Emmanuel Acho, when he didn't immediately take the side of like, hey, these rules are archaic, they're slave-based, they're racist and all these things, by not taking that side, people were like, hey man, you're being almost a little too logical because we get it. We understand you broke a rule, but we got to look at these rules, baby, and we got a lot of changes to make. I mean, there are two things in our generation right now. Rights for homosexuals and nationalizing, or I should say legalizing weed on a national level. These two things have flipped so fast. Now, it might not seem like that today, but in hindsight, I mean, we got like President Obama was, you know, not for gay marriage up until like there's a lot of people, you know, because the constituents weren't there. The sort of empathy of bringing everyone together. Social media has done that. Social media has showed us all of the wrongs that are right in front of our face. So you have to be you keep your head in the sand to ignore it all, you know? But it's from the people like Bernie in the 60s fighting for equality. It's these people that have fought their lifetime for what we're taking for granted now with the knowledge that we have. But we're not quite there. We're not quite there. There's still the IOC, and everyone says, well, just because you want to legalize weed in the U.S., that doesn't mean other countries, well, it's like, look, yeah, other countries stone and beat their gay people and make women wear facial covers or females can't drive. And there's plenty of countries that have archaic, no, not to say all of them, but there are plenty of countries that are behind the times. I mean, you can't go to Thailand, get life in prison if you bring weed into Japan. It's like, that's, you know what I mean? But the U.S. is responsible in the past for making other countries criminalize weed. And now as we try to decriminalize it, we're faced to look at the issues that we have manipulated other countries into criminalizing weed so we could help prosecute people in a war on drugs. And now we're realizing how racist and backwards thinking it all was. People like Emmanuel, good on them for using their platform to educate themselves and do a little research. As far as ShaCarri Richardson's concerned, I don't know. Is it too late to get this petition signed? Is it too late to just let her run? 4x100 relay, that's not the be all end all, but boy, let me tell you something. I bet you she runs through her socks. I could just see, whoo boy. I mean, you want to talk about, she will, oh boy, yeah. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see, that's for sure. And let me tell you something. I'm not done reporting on it. We'll give you more news. Let me know. Leave a comment. Hit the subscribe button and like this video. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.